So, Bob,
Oh, see, I knew that was going to happen.
I've been watching The Expanse, like binge watching.
Excellent show.
Excellent show. 4 seasons. Do you know what I really like about that show? Well, it's a lot, but ask me what I really like about that show, Bob.
Kevin, let me ask you a question. What do you really like about that show?
I really like the idea that it's a pretty accurate, in my non-scientific, scientific opinion, portrayal of movement around our solar system. Meaning, you'll see ships take off or fly. They have to do burns, and then they spin around and do a deceleration burn. You know, when they want to slow down. It's not just like this Star Trek-y thing where we get going and we stop. They have to aim the ship in a direction, burn, spin the ship around, burn, so they can slow back down. So, yeah.
So do you think that they just figured out, and this is not scientific at all, they figured out from a technical show writing standpoint how to integrate that into the storyline? Because I think Star Trek just kind of like, they just push the button and they don't want to waste a lot of time on the how.
Yeah, it's totally a decision on, hey, what's our show going to worry about? In Star Trek, the technology is just assumed, it works, and don't really worry about how the gizmos and gadgets work. And then they focus on humanity, where The Expanse, a good part of the show, is on the physics. The other parts of the show I like, acceleration. We talked about acceleration before in orbiting Earth, and you're like, well, how can the human body take moving at 17,000 miles an hour? And my response to you was,
yeah, because you're basically standing still at that
exactly. Time. Acceleration is what gets you. So in the show The Expanse, what do they do when they do a high G burn?
They get injected with some shit,
yeah.
Right?
Now that's the fantastical stuff, whatever that shit is. But I love the fact that they address the idea that the human body can only take so many Gs. It's just not, well, let's just go as fast as possible, right?
Well, early in this series, I think it might have been end of season 1 or beginning of season 2, where they were talking about the belters that were slingshotting.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, it was a whole like sport / underground / betting thing. Like you could bet if the guy was going to splat or not.
Yeah.
Have you gotten that far yet?
Yeah, I'm in the season 4 now. And then the one belter who is, spoiler alert, the one belter who's like doing his thing, and then he hits the ring, and then he just turns into jelly, people jelly. That was awesome. I'm like, yes.
Well, if you're going real fast and all of a sudden you're stopped to 0, I imagine you're like the bug on the windshield, right?
Well, you're the human inside the car, and you move forward, like you would. So it's stuff like that I really like. The other thing that doesn't go it's kind of unnoticed is when they get ready for battle, they actually depressurize the Rocinante. I don't know if you've noticed, and they put on their suits. Why do they do that? They don't really talk about that, but why, Bob?
Oh, I didn't know they depressurized.
Yes.
I just figured they put on their suits because they thought if they got hit, the cabin would depressurize.
Well,
but
that's
probably why they depressurize, so they don't blow up when something hits.
So they don't have an explosive decompression. And a lot of time, and there's also no lasers, really. I mean, there is a laser, but that's really not a thing. They don't have lasers as weapons in the show. So what they have is things like we have nowadays. You take a thing, you put kinetic energy behind it, and put a hole in something, that's going to fuck up the whatever you put a hole in, right? So they have regular guns for the most part. And I like that.
Yeah, and I think you and I talked about this in the Mars episode too, is I like that The Expanse takes a relatively realistic look at space communications, because they do, discuss that it's delayed. It has to be point to point. It can't just magically get from, way someplace to around the corner someplace else. there has to be an alignment.
Yeah. See, these are all little subtle things that I really like. I really like the idea that people have been born in the belt or on Mars, and when they go to Earth where there's 1 G of gravity, that they can't walk very well. I'm like, oh my God, that is so what Star Trek has missed out on. You go to any planet.
It's not even that they can't walk really well. Their visual perception, because they're not used to the vastness. So they've got the balance issues, but definitely the impacts of the way that they explore the impacts of 1G versus, being in space. But that astronaut, God, I'm going to forget his name. International Space Station guy also talked about that pretty in depth
Mark
in the
Kelly,
Joe Rogan episode.
one of the twins.
Yes, because they could test his bone density versus his twin brother who was on the planet, all that good stuff. So that all that stuff's very interesting, and it is interesting that a show
Acknowledges
actually gets
it, right?
that far into it. Yeah,
because, and not to hate on Star Trek, I love Star Trek, but in Star Trek they just assume 1g of gravity, and that's like, oh, I have a new gripe with Star Trek, and it's gravity. Because when the Enterprise goes to warp or whatever, in the show they talk about inertial dampeners. It's essentially basically why you can still be standing, then go to like warp 6 and just be like walking around to the urinal. Which, by the way, you never see a bathroom in Star Trek. Is that weird? Anyway,
do you see a bathroom in The Expanse? I can't remember.
I can't remember either. But there's a bathroom in The Mandalorian. I don't know if you've watched the Star Wars. There's actually a bathroom
enough to have Disney Plus.
Yeah. All right. So we started talking about The Expanse. We'll probably come back to it at some point. Bob, what was the genesis of this episode today?
Well, actually, there was some couple of good segue opportunities, but today we're really here to talk about a video that's been circulating, and I'm doing circulating in air quotes, and that's going to be one of the things we talk about. But apparently there was we're going to call it an IFO now because, spoiler alert, we'll talk about that a little later. A ship or an object of sorts that was filmed looking very intentionally from the International Space Station. So we're going to talk about how that video came to light and kind of what's happened about that video since. Is that cool? Yep. Can we do that?
That sounds good.
You are listening to the Bob and Kevin Show with Bob Beattybar
and Kevin Gishesky. Each week we cover relevant tech and social issues related to technology.
Our website is bobandkevin.show.
And our episodes can be found virtually on any podcast network.
Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Just search for Bob and Kevin Show.
So you sent me a link a couple weeks ago now. I think it was early February or mid-February, like February 21st.
February 21st, you got it.
And you sent me the link, and I was a little actually taken aback where you sent me the link from. And that's actually going to be my first line of questioning. Why do you have iHeartRadio News as something that you get or know of?
I think I got that. So on my phone, I've got one of those aggregators for things, and you can pick your topics and whatnot. I usually do
like a headliner app.
Yeah, I usually do science, technology, God knows what. And so obviously I don't get to determine what's in there. So it's curated elsewhere. So
was it in Flipboard? Is it Flipboard that you use?
Yes, it is. And it was.
Interesting. So this came up on Flipboard.
Yes. So let's describe the video real quick. So it's a video made by NASA from the International Space Station, a live feed. And to paint the picture for the audio listener here, it's essentially a static camera. You've got the Earth in the background, you've got parts of the space station in the foreground, and then the camera operator zooming in, kind of trying to get a fix on what appears to be an object moving at the same speed as the International Space Station, kind of as a like a tag along, but it's not connected in any way to the space station. And then at the end of the 20-ish minute video, it appears to fly off the top part of the screen. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, so it looks like it picks up speed, still on the same orbital path, we'll say, as the space station, yet below it. And then all of a sudden it appears to make a 90-degree turn straight upward and vanish out of frame. So this was posted on iHeartRadio or via iHeartRadio's news aggregator of sorts, February 26th. We'll put a link to this in the show notes. And apparently the event happened on the 21st, I think. Is that what we decided?
Yes.
Yeah. From some other research that we did. So iHeartRadio posts this video, and this video is from Scott Waring, the founder of UFO Sightings Daily.
Of
so
course.
like all of a sudden this is all like hinky in my mind. So Kevin sends a link. I'm pretty like, I don't know, I don't know if I'm going to say I'm impressed, but I'm pretty like, wow, this is I mean, it's really good video. We'll post a link to the video too, the unedited and the edited versions. But it's very captivating. You're like, what the hell is going on here? This is like very compelling. But if you listen to the audio from the unedited recording, everything is very matter of fact. They're doing totally other tests in the background. So the people communicating aren't focused on this object. Something else is. Some other, person on the space station controlling the cameras, or somebody down in Houston, whatever the case may be. Somebody else is controlling the camera. So it's very captivating. So I immediately start to look all around the internet, because you would think, holy shit, this is
the big one.
Awesome.
Here it is.
Yeah, this is it. This is what we've been waiting for. It looks so legit. It looks, very much like all the other tic-tac-y type things that have been explained, except in much finer detail and 22 minutes duration of monitoring. So it's just like, my mind is completely blown at this point. And I start looking around, and I find zero other like news outlets covering this, zero other even references to the video for days. Like, I kept looking because I wanted it to be something. And then, of course, I put on my tinfoil hat, and it felt like, whoa, well, maybe this got covered up. Like, maybe that's why no one's talking about it. And so, of course, in show prep that we do, all this extensive research on, I find reference because I went to NASA, right? Did you go to the NASA website and start combing through? Because this is actual NASA live footage.
I did not, but I'm intrigued now. Continue.
So I did, and I was looking for, like, they have all these videos archived out there, and I was looking, for stuff during that week, during that day, ISS UFO on the NASA video YouTube page. Can't find anything about it. I go back and do a broader search, just YouTube in general, and I'm seeing a bunch of stuff referenced from 7 years ago, 6 years ago, 10, and I'm thinking, oh, this is a recycle of something that was captured years ago. And then I see a video from these guys, the Rick and Bubba Show.
Sounds legit.
Yeah, that was kind of like, I was like, shit, I'm totally down the rabbit hole now. However, the intro to the clip talks about how one of the guys is a scientist, and I think he was a scientist at NASA. I think Bubba was. Fact checkers will have to get me on this. But anyway, they had a guest on their show, an actual astronaut, and they were drilling him about this video. So, Kev, you got a chance to watch the video as well, right?
I did, and the Rick and Bubba Show, kind of like no association to the Bob and Kevin Show.
Yeah, it's very similar, I know, but we're not Rick and Bubba.
So essentially, it's a kind of a typical morning show, radio jock show, a bunch of old white dudes in a room, but they're doing it like on a YouTube feed, and they have a guest. I watched a unrelated episode, and they had a comedian on there. So it's like a normal morning show. So there's a bit of legitimacy to it. It's just not like this secret society of UFO tinfoil hat people, right? So it had, it was above that in terms of credibility. But yes, they grilled the astronaut. You had called attention. We'll probably have a link to this video too. You've called attention to the comments, and nobody in the comments was buying what the astronaut was selling, right?
Yeah, and so it's so funny when they segued. So they had the astronaut explaining what it actually was going on in the video. They get rid of space garbage all the time, and they offload that garbage from the International Space Station, and they put them in pod type things. And actually, sometimes they use SpaceX pods that are actually designed to take stuff down in the atmosphere, melt away. Sometimes they are intended to splash down somewhere because it's a part of an experiment that they want to send the stuff back, but they don't have a shuttle coming back and forth, whatever the case may be. So he explained this whole process, and the reason why the camera was so dialed in on it is because they have to know what's going on with this thing that they release out there so it doesn't come back and hit them. So it's all very intentional, the direction that they launch it off on, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the hosts, I'm going to guess that it was Rick, because I think Bubba is the older one with the gray hair. Rick said, okay, I hear everything you're saying, and I know that as soon as we're done with this interview, the callers are going to call in and they're going to say, but why did it look like it was going straight up at the end and there was green like plasma residue as it went off screen? And so the astronaut explained in a very long, drawn-out way why that appeared to be that way. Kevin, what were your thoughts? Because obviously the comments, nobody believed the story that the astronaut was telling.
Nobody believed it. However, let me paint a little more. So we talked in a previous episode, in order to orbit the Earth, you have to go about 17,500 miles an hour. Why is that? Well, it's kind of like being at the end of a string where as you flip something around, the nut or the bolt, the weight at the end of the string wants to go away, and it's bound by the string. Same thing when we orbit the Earth. Depending on the speed we go, we'll either want to fly away from the Earth, but gravity pulls us in. So the butter zone at a certain altitude, 17,500 miles an hour, will keep you right there. So what he was saying, that orbital mechanics, or I think that's what he used, are tricky. And he said, well, if you're going 17,500 miles an hour and then you shoot something below you, push it below you with the intent of it burning up in the atmosphere, if you don't slow it down and it's going the same speed, it will eventually raise up because there's nothing stopping it. So imagine, throwing something below you because you're assuming there's gravity that's, going to be at play. But we're now talking about we're spinning around the Earth and we're floating, seemingly floating. So there's different, perception that's going on here. So if you throw it directly behind or underneath you at 90 degrees, it has the risk of actually floating up and actually catching up in front of you. Why? Because think when you're a little bit lower altitude to Earth, you no longer need to be at 17,500 miles an hour to stay at orbit. In fact, it may be higher or lower. I don't know if you need to go faster or slower. But the point is you won't stay there because that's not the correct velocity at that altitude. So you either move up or move down unless you correct your velocity. So long story short, he was saying that depending on how you get rid of the trash, it may do some weird shit in terms of which way it goes based on perception. So that was my takeaway.
Yeah, and I was kind of wondering if maybe he just wasn't prepared to explain it, but I kind of likened the upward trajectory, the appearance, because he was kind of saying they reference optical illusion. But I also thought of the fact that, when you think about watching, what was the movie where they had to make sure that they came in at the right angle, or that if they came in too steep, they would burn up. If they came in too shallow, they would bounce off.
Apollo 13.
Apollo 13, thank you. So I was thinking that as in my mind playing out how it was going to be explained, I thought he was going to say when they ejected the trash, they ejected it at too shallow a trajectory, and eventually it ricocheted off. That's what I thought they were going to. He was going to explain, and he didn't. That was the weird part to me.
Now, if you watch the video, it looks like at the end of the video, it takes off. But all of the replays that I see are fast forwarded. I saw it in real time. It takes a long time to rise up, right? Have you seen, did you watch the one video where it was a 20-minute video? It didn't be like, hey, I'm an alien spaceship, I'm just going to go
right
out of the frame.
It didn't just zip out, right? They were like scrubbing to make it look like it was like a...
And so 2D... The three-dimensional world in a 2D video can do some really fun stuff. So when they made Lord of the Rings, they had the hobbits stand way closer or way farther away from the camera, and then they had the normal human closer to the camera. But if on a certain angle, it really made the hobbits look like small people and humans look like a giant or something like that. So there can be some weird optical illusions. So I'm totally buying that. And imagine if there's something in orbit just slightly above your field of view and it passes you, it's not going to pass you necessarily left, right. It could pass up and over you. And your perception, especially on a video, is that it rose up. Well, did it rise up or did it just barely miss my head?
Right. Because there can be darn near close to infinite orbital trajectories around a sphere.
Yeah. So I went into the video thinking, how they're going to explain this one, because I've seen other NASA videos where the thing in the video zips out of frame. This did not zip out of frame. I don't know. Have you seen any other videos from the space station? I mean, they're like from the 1990s or whatnot.
Yeah, well, and that was one of the points I was going to get to later, too. There are tons of these videos, and we actually referenced the phenomena, why there's tons of these videos a few episodes back when we were talking about Starlink. There's tons of space junk in orbit, and they referenced it in this conversation as well, and I found a bunch of videos on NASA's site where they were actually showing, like, they had to pull people in from a spacewalk because a known larger chunk of debris was on a similar orbit as they were. So they would put them in protective capsules just outside the ship, and then you would see the video of the debris go by. So it is very common, and depending on which directions both parties are going, that zipping thing could totally happen.
You got to ask yourself, I mean, we're a family of 5, sometimes 6, and we have a lot of garbage, and I feel ashamed about it every week. So what do astronauts produce in terms of garbage? I'm sure they're on the latest cutting edge of recycling urine for water. They're going to put the poo out the side of the space station, but they have other sorts of garbage. And at some point, you definitely need to send that out somehow, some way. So if you don't really think about, well, where do you put your garbage on the space station? But somebody has to think about that, right?
Yeah. And from a scientific perspective, that we were kind of taking at the open of the show, it makes a lot of sense. They run a lot of experiments up there. So there's containers for the initial phase of the experiment, containers for maybe the result of the experiment. So, I mean, there's probably a fair amount of container waste that occurs over the course of a 6-month tour.
An astronaut was saying this just wasn't like, hey, we've got an extra bag of Doritos. Where do I throw it away? This was like an old 2009 piece of communications equipment. So we always think of, hey, we got this new module. It's on the whatever, and it's now attached to the space station. Well, that new module is great, but one day it's going to be old and might need an upgrade. And so those spare parts might come up, and guess what? You put the new spare parts in only after you take out the old shitty parts. So where do the old shitty parts go? It's not like they put the trash back in the space shuttle, which don't fly anymore, or the Soyuz capsule. They just don't have space for that. Do you want to fly back to Earth with your trash? No, nobody wants to do that. They just want to burn it up in the atmosphere. And I guess, that's a thing.
Right. Now, the question I have is, if this pod did actually bounce off the atmosphere unintentionally, because I'm sure they meant it to get down into the atmosphere to burn up, if it bounced off unintentionally, we talked about this too, with the logistics of going to Mars and things like that, and with the satellites, they just added more junk to the orbit pattern if that thing bounced out. Well, because it's probably going to get stuck in some orbit for a while before it degrades.
So, Bob, imagine you're in a spacesuit in a space station, and you're now in a spacewalk, and the worst thing happens. You somehow become detached from a space station, and you can't reach it to pull yourself back in. This is...
sounds like a great movie plot.
I believe it's the movie Gravity, actually.
Yeah.
So the problem is you can't accelerate yourself in any way, shape, or form. You can't wave your arms like you could in water or air. Well, think about the trash. So when you let the trash out the back door, so to speak, you can't slow it down either, right? You can't.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just be like, hey, put it on the back porch and it'll float away. No, it's moving at the same speed as you. If you push it, you can accelerate it slightly. If you're an astronaut, you can kind of push it. But the only way to slow it down would be to put a thruster or something on your trash can, or put a tether that, I can't even think of a whole lot of ways. So throwing the trash away on a space station is probably very hard. And what they attempt to do is probably push it below, and it's possible it bounces off the atmosphere because it can't slow down, like you're saying, or it does some weird shit. But the only weird thing about the video that I'm like, if you pushed it down with the idea of it burning up on Earth, why is it suddenly on the top of the frame like it's now higher orbit than we are? That I couldn't reconcile.
And that's why I thought he was going to describe it as they sent it out too shallow and it bounced out. Like
you're not allowed to say that.
Or,
maybe that's in the NASA standard operating procedure. When you fuck up the trash dump, you just say, "Oh, well, that's normal."
Right, because they did actually add to space garbage by not succeeding there. Now, I know that we're talking about space and, forgot the IFO part.
Oh, yeah.
So in the original story, this is, referenced as a UFO on Space Station Live feed. it was funny in the interview with the astronaut, and I feel bad that I don't know the astronaut's name that they interviewed, but he quickly said, "You mean the IFO, the identified flying object," and then he went on to explain that. So that's why I reference it as IFO in the open. So anyway,
as we mentioned about the YouTube comments, people are like, "Yeah, whatever." Of course, YouTube comments are a cesspool, or they're really funny. There's no in between. They're really funny, or they're a cesspool of reaction. And so a lot of people are like, I believe and whatnot. And when I first saw the video, I was like, that's compelling. One thing that NASA's always historically been terrible, and the Air Force included, is explaining what the fuck it is we're seeing. Because every time they try to, they fumble through it, as you mentioned. And it's just like, oh, this is totally a cover-up because you can't explain how people take out the trash in space, apparently. So you give this big story of how it's a weather balloon or something like that, right?
Yeah, I imagine that they're probably highly coached by a legal team, because there's probably some kind of technological secrets that if they gave all the detail, then anybody would be able to take out the trash in space. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, so that's kind of why I appreciate the Expanse bringing it back to that, is because they do kind of pay attention to the little things. Like when somebody gets shot in 0G, and I don't know if this is true or not, but one of the tropes or one of the storylines was, hey, your wound won't drain,
Yes, I do appreciate that medical aspect too. It's very interesting.
Is that true? I don't know. I never thought about that before, but somebody at the show is thinking about that.
Yeah, and so they use binding agents and things like that. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. So, all right. So here's some fun little exercise I want to go through with you. So here on Earth, we have 1G of gravity. So it's just like you move your arms. That's what you feel when you go to outer space. You're actually not in 0G. You're in micro G because there's still a slight amount of gravity, but whatever.
Well, even in theory, wouldn't any body in space generates some kind of gravitational force, right? So that would include the vessel that you're on, even in your body, right?
Yeah, actually, Jackson asks me this all the time. Anything with mass generates gravity.
Creates gravity.
Yep.
Yeah.
But gravity is actually very insignificant until you get enough of it. Now it's like, son of a bitch. It's like, I can't escape the hug of Earth. So let's talk about some other physics stuff real quick. So the speed of light is our cosmological speed limit. Right now, as far as we understand, we cannot go faster than the speed of light. Nothing can. Humans can't. Nothing can. Not even information. The speed of light is our speed limit.
Terminal velocity.
And if we do a few Googles, I wanted to know, well, what's the most amount of G-force the human can sustain without dying or losing consciousness? It's around 9 or 10 Gs. If you get in a car accident, you could get up to 40 Gs and still survive it.
But that's just an instantaneous 40 Gs.
So we also got to think about G-force over a period of time. So, Bob, I'm going to ask you a question, and I expect an accurate answer. If you were able to have a spaceship that had unlimited capability of fuel and thrust and whatever, keep you alive, like food, water, shelter, and all that, and it could move fast enough where it provided 1G of thrust, so it would feel like, you feel right here, this is, I can't really detect it, this is normal to me. How long would it take you to get to the speed of light at that acceleration rate? You weren't expecting math, were you?
I'm going to go with 300 years.
Wow, that's actually wrong. So it's closer to 300 days. It's actually about 1 year. So if you could have a spaceship and it accelerated at approximately 1G,
I'm sorry, there must have been an audio glitch there because I did say 300 days, not years.
Oh, must have been. So it would take you about a year starting now. But here's where it gets a little weird, because the way theory of relativity works is as you approach the speed of light, time slows down for the person being traveling. So you have to actually decide who's keeping the clock and whatnot, because from the astronaut's perspective and the observer, somebody here on Earth, you actually get there at different times. So to the astronaut itself, It takes a little more than a year, I believe. And then to an observer here, it takes about a year. So, okay, well, 1G, 1 year. I don't want to wait a year, Bob, to get to the speed of light, assuming we can get close to the speed of light. So if we take our 10G and we say, let's ramp up our engine to go 10G, how long would it take us to get to approximately the speed of light? It's actually
30 days?
It's actually the simple math. Yeah, it's about 35 days. So
Okay.
if you could possibly go...
But 10G is way more than we can take.
Well, that's like right after losing consciousness. So
Right.
What
That'd be a shitty 30 days. That's for sure.
Right. So what I'm getting at here is once you attain the speed of light, like the next closest star system is 4 light years away. So you would have to go the speed of light for 4 years to reach like Andromeda or Proxima Centauri b or whatever is the closest one is. But you can't do that at 10G. So where am I going with all this? I'm saying if there were aliens here and they were, doing all this thing, imagine all the things they have to overcome based on our current understanding of physics. Whatever the maximum acceleration.
Yeah, but we've covered this before, though, when we talked about Bob Lazar being on Joe Rogan.
Episode 42.
Our understanding of physics is our understanding. Like, we're in our moment in time. There's civilizations that could be out there where they've got this all figured out.
Thank you for taking the bait, Bob. So,
as always.
Exactly. So, based on our current understanding of physics,
Huckleberry.
which is the only understanding that humanity knows, it's improbable that we can actually be an interstellar species, even if Elon Musk drops on us a space engine tomorrow that can take us at a thrust of 10G, right? So, So, if aliens...
Aha. Thank you for taking the bait, Kevin.
All I'm saying is you're right.
Isn't it more likely that we live in a simulation than we don't live in a simulation?
I don't know what episode that is, but that's also a previous Bob and Kevin show episode. Check us out where podcasts are available near you. Okay, so even if Elon Musk drops on us a 10G thrust engine, which is basically the fastest we can accelerate, it would take us... what is 4 times that? So it'd take us 120, 140 days. No, 4 years. Shit. Still 4 years. Anyway, it takes us a long time. So it takes us 35 days to get to the speed of light, and then we have to still stay at the speed of light for 4 years. Right. So it'll take 4 years and 35 days, to be exact. Anyway, that's just not practical. So in order for aliens to actually be visiting us, they either are A, hiding out on Pluto, and we're just stupid, or B, our understanding of physics and traveling in this great universe is incomplete, which I tend to believe they're not on
Highly
Pluto,
likely.
and our understanding is incomplete. Now that I sound like a crazy flat earther challenging physics as we know it.
Also a Bob and Kevin show episode.
Yes. But I'm going to ask you the bold question, Bob, here halfway into the pod. Do you believe we are, based on what we just talked about, do you believe that we could be visited by aliens? And if so, does that mean it has to be by a way other than our conventional knowledge of physics?
Oh, God. This is a view of mine that probably changes, if not daily, like hourly. I saw this video. I was like, this is it. Piled it on top of some of the other circumstantial evidence that we've discussed over the past few years. And I'm like, yep, this is it. And then, wah, wah, wah. It's not it. It's not it at all. So who the fuck knows? I have no stake in the ground. I have no flag on the surface of moon in this debate.
Okay. All right. Nice.
How about you?
Nice way to not answer the question, Senator Beatty Bar.
I think right now my answer right this minute is no. A half hour ago it was yes.
So I've been indirectly influencing your thoughts here. Wow, that's amazing.
No, everything has, and there's actually a next segment of this show that I want to get to. So first I need to find out, how about you? What are your thoughts?
Well,
are you a believer?
The thing is I would really like it if there were, but I think that's where the reality becomes, or crosses over to fiction, to think that we're actually being visited. Now, if we reflect back to episode 42, the Tic Tac videos and the discussion there and Bob Lazar, man, that really makes me want to just contradict myself right here, right now. But then I also ask myself, okay, in order to get to Earth from wherever, first, a few things have to happen. Some alien species has to pick Earth of all fucking places in this giant, unlimited size universe and be like, yeah, that's where I want to go. First off,
but if they can span light years in minutes, if they have better technology, they could be going everywhere.
All right, let me ask you this, Bob. We can span our globe. You see what I did, flat earthers? We can span our globe on an airplane within hours. Would you go get on an airplane and visit an ant colony in Africa? Just because you can? Why go to an ant farm in Africa? Because you know what? If you're that smart, you don't care about the ants. Nobody cares about humans, right?
We have scientists that do that exact thing because they can.
You know, I thought the same thing, and I was hoping you didn't say that, but you're right.
Yeah, no, trust me, I can argue. But all that aside, I think we've touched on the thing that I wanted to get to, because we touched on it last week when we were talking about social media, or the last episode when we were talking about social media. The fact that this news story came up in Flipboard, I saw on here it's been liked 1,500 times on that iHeartRadio app. So there's 1,500 people at least that were exposed to this. Rick and Bubba, who have 35,000, we'll give them 36,000 because it's 35.9. 35.9 subscribers on their YouTube show, did an episode about it. The original ET database conspiracy guy, whose video was featured in the iHeartRadio app, has 34.2 thousand subscribers. I thought that there was a commitment on some of these social media platforms, especially YouTube, to try to cut down on misinformation. This guy's presenting this as an alien sighting, and NASA, who filmed the video, was unfazed by it and then had to send somebody onto a relatively small podcast show on YouTube to explain that they were letting the trash go out. So there's way more to this than science.
Yes, and I think I have the solution here. Are you ready for it, Bob?
Yeah, because we rarely have solutions on the show.
Which means I really probably don't have the solution. All right, so we talked last episode about the psychology of social media, but let's kind of expand that a little bit to the psychology of communicating in 2020. So first off, it's profitable to have something that's got innuendo or salaciousness to it, right? So there's that. Are you familiar with the term gaslighting? And I had to look, to be honest, I had to look up the definition because, if I break this down as a compound word, we invoke wave the flames, but that's not what it means. Are you familiar with gaslighting, though?
Kevin, you're absolutely not even right on the right track because it's the latest song from the Dixie Chicks. Look it up.
That is true. I did see that last night on Entertainment Tonight or whatever came on after the news. So, are you ready for me to read from the Wikipedia?
I love it when you read from Wikipedia.
I know.
Go ahead.
That's right. And people, I do appreciate that you came to our podcast just to listen to me read from Wikipedia. All right. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation in which a person or group covertly sows seeds of doubt in a targeted individual, making them question their own memory, perception, or judgment, often evoking in them cognitive dissonance and other changes such as low self-esteem. So, it was originally coined in 1938. There's a movie called Gaslight, if you want to read more about it. It's on the wiki. So, what I believe is happening here is the same thing that happens with flat earthers. It's taking something that is all kind of like part of our reality. We have a globe Earth. We don't have aliens here. And then we sprinkle in shows like Ancient Aliens, Flat Earthers, and these damn YouTube videos that just come out of the blue. And people it's like a sport where they gaslight the situation. Like, I will challenge the status quo. I will make you believe something differently. And it is a sport to me. I will take something like, a ship on the horizon isn't doing what you think it's doing because we're actually on a flat Earth. And I believe it's this manipulation that people get their frickin' jollies on. What do you think?
I think that those people have to be at the top of the pyramid. Like, what percentage do you think are those people that just do it for the sport?
I think these people on YouTube are good at it. And I think the guy who runs the flat earther thing is good at it. And then they realize they're good at it. And then they pretend that they're not good at it, but they're actually even better at it when they pretend they're not good at it because they're like hiding their tracks here. But
why is everything so not real? I hate that part.
Which is also what we talked about last episode. Apparently this episode's about talking about old episode references because I believe we're in a fake world, and I believe it's people want to believe in that we have confirmation bias. If you want there to be aliens, you will believe the video, and people prey upon that. If you aren't very good at science and it just doesn't bother you, and somebody comes along and says, hey, the reason you're not happy with your science in high school is because they're telling you lies. The world's actually flat. That's the real truth. And I think people are like, that's why I didn't get it. I always thought there was something different. And we play on these like psychological, deficiencies, if you will. And people are really good at getting their hooks in there and just ripping it wide open. And I believe that's a form of what they call gaslighting.
What about this guy, Dave Bassner, who ran the story on iHeartRadio? Apparently he's a quote-unquote journalist for iHeartRadio. What are the repercussions of iHeartRadio and this guy, or iHeartMedia, I guess, is the parent company? What are the repercussions of them letting this shit get out here?
None. And Bob, I don't know if you recall, I also tweeted around that day, hey, can you buy alien abduction insurance? And sure enough, on the Geico website itself, yes, you can. And then you can actually buy it from a place in London, and it's got like over 30,000 policies out there. You know what? Yes, they can. And what's the repercussions? Because, damn it, I thought that was a good idea. Bob, would you like to buy an alien abduction policy? Because I know full well it's full of shit. But you know what? All I got to do is make you believe that it's possible, right?
Dude, I've contemplated getting rid of my car insurance because I think it's bullshit. So,
well, there's that.
I'm definitely not buying an alien abduction policy.
So, yeah, totally look into it. You can definitely do it. Look into it. So,
ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Bravo in studio.
So I've also been watching on the History Channel Project Blue Book, and that just reminded me I probably got some new episodes waiting for me, which is a fictional drama based on Project Blue Book, and before that there was two other projects. And it's basically the way the show comes off, and the way the Wikipedia article also kind of
wait. Hang on, before you get into that, do we not have any issue with fictional dramas being on something called the History Channel?
Well, it's funny because on the History Channel we have Pawn Stars, we have Ancient Aliens, and basically Hitler. That's the History Channel right there.
I hate media. I hate media right now.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So anyway, it's a fictional drama.
Back to the fictional drama.
Project Blue Book. It was a real thing run by the Air Force. They had some people in it, and their goal was to see whether or not UFOs were actually a threat. They concluded, nope, there weren't. But, revelations were that the Air Force told them to make sure you debunk everything on purpose. So feeding this whole conspiracy theory frenzy. So I think deep down, humans, we just can't get enough conspiracy theory. I just think somewhere in our genome, whether it's when we went from like fish to frogs, like right there, apparently like the conspiracy theory genome, we got hit by a cosmic ray at that point in our life, and now conspiracy theories is just like, oh yeah, give me some of that.
Guilty as charged. So, I love a good conspiracy.
So let me ask you this. What if, so we've all seen the television trope. You got the sheriff in town, and the young hero or heroine walks in. Sheriff, you got to believe me. There's aliens. And he's like, oh, I don't know. that sounds like a pretty tall story. And then he turns around, there's the alien, and he just like sucks the sheriff's face off, right? All right. So what would it take in our society to actually, for people to believe? I mean, what event? Because clearly some YouTube video ain't going to do it. What's going to take?
But it does for a lot of people.
Okay, that's fair. But for rational people who listen to the Bob and Kevin show.
Oh, for me personally, what it would take, I would have to touch an alien body.
Ooh, where would you touch it?
They'd have to show on the doll, apparently, where I touched it. I have no idea. It would have to be hyper tangible at this point for me.
There's a movie, and it's falling out of my memory here. Maybe you know, but it's a recent movie where they make contact with this aliens, and they're not humanoid, they're not bipedals, they don't have arms and legs, they're more like squids and octopus, and they touch the window. Are you familiar with this movie?
Ooh, no, I don't know this.
It has to do with like anyway, somebody's at home going, Kevin, it's whatever. Yeah, that movie. So I think one assumption we make, and it's the hubris of humanity, that aliens look like us. And I don't mean they look like Bob and Kevin, but they look like the little grays with the big eyes and have 2 arms and 2 legs. Honestly, I think if aliens are real, they're not going to look anything like that. That's so like a very terrestrial.
You're saying that aliens are already among us. We just don't know that they're aliens.
I am not saying that. I'm saying aliens will probably look nothing like it has 2 arms, a leg, and a head. You know,
right. They probably look like dogs, right? I think that's what
not
you're
even
saying.
dogs. I'm saying maybe they have no legs. Maybe they're just like, they look like turds or something. I don't know. They just.
You've heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Kevin Gaszewski says that aliens are turds, like turds, and they're already here.
I did not say that. Lies, fake news.
Your turd is an alien.
All right, so you would have to touch an alien. So
yeah, I'm not touching a turd though.
What? I mean, and the other like common thing is like, oh, I think I saw lights in the sky. You're telling me a highly advanced civilization that has overcome light years of distance and travel has safety lights on? Is that what you're telling me?
I've heard jet pilots in the desert, knowing that people are looking for aliens, will buzz their camps on purpose.
So the whole lights in the sky thing never really has gone very far with me. You know, you're not going to have like this active beacon. Hey, I'm an alien UFO. Look, I'm blinking light. I mean, maybe aliens like to troll humans, and it would totally work because we would totally suck that up, right? I mean, humans troll humans. Why wouldn't aliens troll humans? I mean, maybe. Okay, I stand corrected.
Because they're not like us. You just said that. They're turds.
Right. All right. So let's say you can cross stellar space like that. Why would you even need a ship at that point? Can't you just open a portal? You know, why would you even use a ship? Isn't that very human?
Maybe that's how we know that they're not hiding on Pluto. Maybe they are using portals.
Exactly. So, I mean, why go? I mean, the only reason you do a ship is, I think if you would think, well, how would humans travel across space? They would build a ship. Well, I think we get down the wrong path of what an actual alien might actually be or look like and how they travel. And you know, we assume maybe they take a dump or they pee or, you know, do all these human things. They have boogers. You know, they probably don't, right?
Well, I think we anthropomorphize, I think that's the term, anything that we don't understand. I think that's one of the flaws we have as humans. We give human qualities so that we can better understand them. So one way of actually using our physics that we know today of getting around the whole space problem is extra dimensions. And right now is usually when I get Bob to do his interdimensional space alien voice, or Alex Jones. Yeah, no, I've moved on from Alex Jones. Oh, man. Okay. So is, you know, if you take a 2D world, and the 2D man doesn't understand the 3D world, so as a 3D human or being, I can reach into the 2D world, pluck the 2D man off into the third dimension. Any observers of that 2D person thinks they disappeared, and I just simply drop them on a different part of the 2D universe. That looks like they instantly traveled there, but in reality, they didn't break any laws of physics. So you just alien abducted 2D man. I did.
So
he needed insurance.
So what if these other beings are just higher dimensional thingies that can simply just pop in and out of our dimension, our 3-dimensional world, because they're using the fourth, fifth, or whatever dimension. Of course, usually the fourth dimension is time, so maybe the 5th dimension, right?
Do you see articles popping up in Flipboard about like the identification of new dimensions?
Well, yes, because I read a lot of those articles because there's something called string theory, which is very popular, and it has 10 or 11 dimensions. And it's if you read the book Hyperspace by Michio Kaku from 1995, which I read for the second time last summer, it talks about all these different things and how these things are predicted, not just, well, I guess they're theory until we go there, which we can't, and that's a problem, right?
Theories that are yet to be proven.
Like gravity. So.
I thought they did prove gravity.
Gravity is still a theory.
Damn it.
But if you talk or watch interviews with Brian Greene, who's on Joe Rogan recently, or Neil deGrasse Tyson, gravity is one of those touchy theories that they kind of give you that scold, like it's a theory, but just move past it. We understand it.
Right.
The weird
theory
thing
that we should take as a given.
The weird thing is we don't understand everything about gravity. We know where to find it, but we don't know how to make it. Like, you can't just turn it on. Unless we go back to episode 42 with Bob Lazar, where apparently he was turning gravity on and off, right?
Yes. Well, the spaceship was.
Yeah. So let me rewind us back to our conversation about 1G acceleration, Bob. Imagine if you could control gravity, and I was saying that after 10G you lost consciousness. Well, what if I had a gravity manipulator that took away that feeling of inertia, that gravity? So now I can go at 100G thrust and get to the speed of light in 3 days, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah, and that's that whole theory that Lazar thought that engine did, is it basically created pockets in front of the vehicle that it would just slide into it at whatever, existence that it was. And that's how it propelled. And
that sounds like what a warp drive is, because it basically doesn't move the ship like you think it does. It basically just brings the space in front of you closer, something weird like that, and you just simply step a small distance, but it moves you far. Warp drives. Probably have to Google that. Probably not qualified to talk about warp drives, are we?
Well, let's not let that ever stop us, because we talk about things we're not qualified to talk about all the time.
That's totally true. All right, so you have to touch an alien. For me, in order to believe that they're aliens, I have a hard time defining what an alien is, because right now, to me, an alien is what Hollywood and media tell me it is, and I really think that is, like, at this point, folklore, and the Greys. So everyone says, "Hey, aliens." When you said I have to touch one, what does it look like, Bob?
I have no idea. I just have to touch it.
Well, how would you know it's an alien, not just like a dog?
Someone in authority would have to tell me.
So Donald J. Trump comes to you and says, I think that right there is an alien. Tremendous alien.
Him.
He's been with us for a long time. He's probably one of the greatest aliens of all time, right?
Anybody but him.
Okay.
A scientist.
So, because how would you know? Because you need a frame of reference. You need something that says, is this an alien? Then you get out your phone and you pull up Google Images and you swipe through looking for, well, there's no match here, so I guess this is not an alien. I mean, how do you know what an alien is? Because our only frame of reference is grays with big eyes or whatever's on Star Trek, right?
Right. But also, isn't it a little silly that we've been to the moon, right? We both believe
allegedly.
That. Right.
Allegedly, we both definitely believe.
Right. We have a rover on Mars.
Yes.
Right. So if we're going to different planets, I have a hard time still having such a strong ego to believe that we're the only intelligent life out there.
Well, I didn't say that there's not intelligent life out there. I'm saying if the one was standing in the room with you, I would.
Well, it might not even be standing.
Right. There you go. See, that's my bias right there. How do you know it has legs, Kevin? You're right. I don't. What does an alien look like? I don't know. But I'll know it if I see it. Is it like the definition of obscene from the Supreme Court? I'll know it when I see it.
Yeah, because in theory, a rock could fall from the sky,
and that's an
it
alien.
Could be an alien.
Right.
It doesn't move perceptibly to us.
Right.
It has no intelligence perceptively to us, yet it could be studying us.
So that's the big problem I have with a lot of the UFO groups. Hey, man, I want to believe too, but what they really should change their thing to is they want to believe what they see on TV is real, which is different.
Right.
Because, yeah, you're right. I think there's got, I mean, the Drake, are you familiar with the Drake equation?
No, you're so much smarter than me.
No, I just
remember that.
I just have no friends. So the Drake equation is basically, think of a bunch of numbers, and so number 1 represents the number of stars in the universe. The next coefficient is the number of planets on those stars that could be in the habitable zone based on life as we know it. Now the number, so on and so forth.
This is the equation that gives us an estimate of how many other intelligent life forms are out there. Yeah.
So that's the Drake equation. And by that standard, there should be a bunch of them out there. And then I believe it's the Fermi paradox, and, Fermi like the Fermi lab, but it's
it's Enrico's paradox. Yeah.
He's basically saying, great, Drake equation says there's a bunch of them out there. Where the fuck are they? Except it doesn't say it just like that. But
you never know. It might.
Right. So one problem I think we have is we may have the unrealistic expectation that they look like what we see in Hollywood, because Hollywood dreamt this up at some point, and we've really kind of just ran with it and be like, yeah, that's what I want aliens to look like. Therefore, that's what aliens do look like. Therefore, there's more content that comes out that looks like Greys with big eyes, X-Files, every, bunch of movies. And therefore, we've kind of turned this into, well, this is what aliens look like. And really, I think we need to pump the brakes on that, right?
Yeah, but then I'm sure that they perpetuate that because that's what watchers can latch onto.
Right.
If they're like, oh, that's plainly an alien.
Do you want to join Kevin's UFO group? He says he doesn't even know what they look like. He doesn't have any cool pictures. He doesn't have any like weird pictures of UFOs and things with big eyes. Why would I want to join his group? His isn't as cool.
That's a shitty recruitment strategy.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, you have to manifest something. You have to conjure up, this is what an alien is. Look, this video right here proves the existence of aliens. Does it? Or does it prove the existence of the idea that you want to believe, and you're forging everything in this video to conform to that?
Now I'm getting angry again.
Hey, again, I would love it if Hollywood were right, and there's a gray alien so Bob could touch it, like in appropriate ways. But because I still want to know what that means. Like, you want to give it a handshake? Of course, Kevin would say, "How do you know it has hands?" So you could be like, giving it a handshake, but that might be his genitals or something. You never know. So
here are the big takeaways from today's episode. Kevin thinks aliens live among us as poop, and Bob wants to touch aliens inappropriately to prove that they're real. I think those are the big takeaways today.
Those are. So, gosh, I'm sure I just muddied it all up, but
this is a standard episode for us. Start with the premise, get sidetracked, muddy it up, and then call it a day.
So I'm trying to answer my own question. So how do we know? How would I know? What would it take for Kevin to believe? I would have to see something that I've never seen before, but there's how many thousands of species of things on this planet that I've never seen before that I might just go, oh, that's an alien. And somebody like, dude, no, there's like 10,000 of those in Africa. I'm like, oh, well, all right. So
that could mean there's 10,000 aliens in Africa.
Maybe. So I don't even know, because right now the gold standard is, well, does it look like what I see on television? Oh, yep. Hey, Ethel, I saw me one of them aliens. And, I just don't think that's good enough. But I think that's what every Facebook group, every YouTube video kind of salaciously does. Oh, that reminds me. Ancient Aliens. You ever watch Ancient Aliens?
No, I really just couldn't go there.
So season 1, because I thought, like, when I watched season 1, this is probably a decade ago, because it's been on forever now.
Please tell me it's not on the History Channel.
Yes, it is on the History Channel.
Damn it.
So season 1, I thought it was like this limited series, and as like just being exposed to this kind of stuff, you're like, wow, no shit, whoa, aliens built the pyramids, holy fuck, man. Then you kind of like, they're in like season 10, they're like, the Super Bowl, an alien threw a touchdown. I'm like, what? They're just like pulling everything is because of aliens, and that's why we have the memes we have today. So
please tell me, when did the History Channel stop being about history? I totally missed that memo.
Yeah, History Channel. There's several channels like that where they just don't reconcile with like MTV. That's the original, right? They were about music. Now they're about like young people hooking up.
I'll give a pass to music television because who cares? But the History Channel, that's like saying it's the medical channel, and and there's nothing about medicine on there.
And it's nothing but like cops, like, live PD type stuff.
Yeah. Tonight on the medicine channel.
Well, yeah, I don't understand how Pawn Stars fits it. But you know what? It goes to show, if people are watching, that's what's going to be on your programming schedule. Okay. What have we left out here?
Nothing. We've left out nothing.
Great. What did we solve?
Everything.
Yeah, really?
Yes.
No, honestly, I think I've actually taken 2 steps back, because before I was like, okay, I know an alien will be, or, there are aliens when I see an alien and when Bob touches one. But now I'm not so sure I will know anymore. For all we know, we've already had first contact. Have you ever read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where like the dolphins and the mice are like the smartest creatures in the universe, and they finally say, fuck this. Thanks so long for the fish. So I'm just saying, maybe we've already met aliens. Maybe they're dolphins. Maybe they've just been here the whole time, and we're like, oh no, you're terrestrial. You've always been here. And they're like, dude, we got here like 100 years ago, but all these fuckers don't know it.
Exactly. It could be anything.
All right.
But we know for a fact, I think, that it wasn't the trash that they dumped out of the International Space Station.
What?
It wasn't the garbage that they dumped. So we know that for a fact.
No,
we do know that. We do know that it was garbage that they dumped. We know for a fact that that's not an alien craft.
Oh right? Yeah, we know for sure that it's not an alien craft. That is correct.
Right, and that's where we started. That there was a alien ship, but now we know it was just the garbage. That's all I got.
It was just the garbage. Watch The Expanse. Check out Project Blue Book if you're into, like, it probably isn't true, but it's just kind of fun to watch. Make sure you check in on all of our old episodes of Bob and Kevin Show, where we expand more into Are We in a Simulation? Bob Lazar, fake shit, or, well, like flying saucer shit, that had the Tic Tac video, which totally, or Tic Tac videos, which totally look legit. What else, Bob? What else can we recommend to people?
Keep tuning in. Hit us up on the tweeters. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like to hear more of, what you'd like to hear less of. Just say hello.
Yes, and I still have a pile of stickers, because apparently nobody does want stickers. So if you want a sticker, reach out.
And your package will be going out Saturday, and there'll be exciting announcements after that package.
Bob, you saying you touched my package?
Nope. That was an alien.
Okay, sounds good.
Till next time, y'all.
Bye.
Hey, have you ever wondered how you can get in touch with us at the Bob and Kevin Show?
Well, first, you can try us via email at comments@bobandkevinshow.com.
Or are you more into social? If so, you can find us on Twitter at Bob and Kevin Show.
Or on Instagram as Bob Kevin Show.
That's Bob, the letter N, Kevin Show.
And if you're still on Facebook, you can even find us at facebook.com/Bob and Kevin Show.
And for the serious business fans, you can even find us on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/company/the-Bob-Kevin-Show.
How's that for a handle? Let's connect.